What is up, everybody? In this video, we're going to talk about top ticks, bottom ticks. What are they? You're here because you must love trading. You're here because you're probably curious about what the top tick, bottom tick is, because I do get a lot of questions on that. And you're here because you may want to learn how to use this in your own trading system. And this is something I've talked about for years. I actually made a video, the volume profile video. There is a chapter in there where it talks about top tick, bottom ticks, yet for some reason I keep getting questions on it, so we're going to do a dedicated video. This specific video on top tick, bottom ticks actually fits into my playlist, my free YouTube course modules. So if you want to learn all about my trading system as a whole, go through that playlist. So let's talk about top ticks, bottom ticks. How did I figure this out? This is something I learned years and years ago. In my course review video where I go over all these courses I've taken or sub-services, there is a section dedicated to a trader named Vertiman. Now, Vertiman doesn't make videos. What Vertiman does is he has a blog, and then he shares information from other traders on there. So just kind of imagine that like this is a compilation of other traders' material, and he's just kind of putting it together like a playlist. So it's partially his words, partially other people's words. So it's very bleh. And then there's a video on there where somebody talks about top tick, bottom ticks. That's another trader that's not Vertiman. And actually this entire trading session you're looking at right here is narrated. So it's a 2-hour video. It's on my coffee, so we're going to only look at a little portion of what you're seeing here. However, if you want to watch all these trades being placed, check out my coffee to watch the whole thing, because it's pretty crazy, because I get fucking blitzed right here on that 1350 loss, and I kind of get a bit tilted, and then you get to see me get my composure together and actually make good trades. In fact, the day before this, I was down, what was it, 1450 or something like that. And then on my coffee, you can watch me go through a daily report card and tell you guys exactly how I'm going to fix my fuck-ups on the next session. And then I fix them on the next session, which is this. And just so you guys know, on the coffee, there is over 62 hours of narrations, 53 episodes, over 400 trades, all being broken down using the system that you have access to for free on this YouTube. There are currently 4 daily report card episodes, and then there are about 6 case study episodes. So there's quite a bit of content on that. So you're interested, go check it out, and we're on now. So on this Vertiman video, there's a guy who's talking about ranges, and then he's talking about top ticks, and he's talking about how I guess he used to trade in the pits, and then he would talk about this phenomenon where the price would be ranging, and then it would top tick, and then most of the time, or a lot of the time, the price would go completely to the other side of the range. And then he would talk about this guy who would get top ticked in the pits, where he would buy the top tick thinking it was a breakout, and then he would get killed every time. So I'm like, wow, that's fucking cool. I want to learn how to do that. Well, the way the guy describes it in the video is a little simple in theory, and it works. The problem is executing it. That's really the most difficult part. So that's why we're going to actually look at me executing this today, so that way you guys can understand how I fit it into the system. So let's just do this. Let's look at this bullshit here. So you have the market ranges all the time. So you have the market, you know, just fucking ranging and shit, right? So at some point, the market could just top tick this, where it just peaks above this prior pivot. Now you can see right here, it doesn't go up there. It's below this, so that's not a top tick, okay? This here is the top tick. It is top ticking. So hypothetically speaking, it should go to the other side. Now, I have a lot of rules and criteria with this, and there's a lot of nuance to it. So I'm going to share as much of that here as possible. So we have this. Now, it could go to the other side. So let's say we got this range, right? So it could go to the other side, or it could hit the midpoint and mid pivot. So when you're watching me trade through the coffee narrations or some of the episodes on YouTube, I'll talk about mid rolls. This is a mid roll. We're rolling the middle of the range, and what could happen is it could come back up. Now it could break out, or shit. Let's do that again. Or it could top tick again. So now we have 2 top ticks, okay? Whereas in this specific example, this would be 1 top tick, okay? So this first area here is not a top tick. This first area is sort of our benchmark. That is like the top of the range where we're really measuring where the top tick might be. And by the way, a bottom tick is the same thing, just on the underside. So keep that in mind. Okay, so you're going to see me tagging trades on my Sierra charts. And this is important to understand because you're going to see that in one of the examples today. You're going to see something like this, BTX2. Or you may see TTX4, TTX5, or TTX0. So what? Oh, I'm in the way. So what these are all telling me is a specific range I'm measuring has 2 bottom ticks. Again, a bottom tick is the same thing as a top tick. This is telling me the range has 4 top ticks. This is telling me it has 5 top ticks, okay? So let's go ahead and erase this. All right. So right here, this is going to be, hypothetically speaking, this would be a TTX 1. This is a TTX. I made it backwards, but this is TTX 2 right here. Now, notice this. The market has never, in this specific example, bottom ticked, right? I would argue to say that, let's say the price is coming from way to fuck down here. And then it's ranging up here. This would be our benchmark. So this would be where we would measure the bottom tick. Well, this right here is slightly higher, so there is no bottom tick. So down here, it would be like a BTX0. And this is a developing range, by the way, or a DVA, developing value area. Ranges and profiles go hand in hand. Again, I talk about that in... I talk about means in this video, ranges, and then I talk about profiles, and they very much go hand in hand. And in the profile video, I talk about how a lot of people kind of do it wrong. So if you haven't watched those videos, you should probably do this because this is more advanced stuff on that shit. Anyways, let's continue. So this would be a BTX0 in this specific. So we have BTX, or we have TTX 2, right? And then they mid-rolled as well, so they did mid-roll here. You'll see a mid-roll tag, and sometimes you'll see a tag like this, MRX. In this case, it would be a 1, but I only do that on prior value areas, not developing. In this example, this is developing. What's the difference? Well, it's a range that's been established and we moved away from it. That's a prior value area. A developing value area is a current range we're in now. So I just do mid-roll tags on prior value areas where I'll do the top tick, bottom ticks on just to add to confusion. I told you this is more advanced, so you probably should go through that shit. But either way, I know they mid-pivoted here. Now, it could do all sorts of shit in this specific example. I mean, it could, we could do all sorts of shit. We could fucking compress. And then if it starts compressing like that, that's usually a sign of a breakout. Or maybe we come in and then we hit down there again, and then we go up again, and then that would be TTX3, 3 top ticks, 0 bottom ticks. So what this is telling me is there's a very high probability at this point it will go to the other side, unless it starts to show compression like this. This is where the importance of market correlations come in play, because you need to be paying attention to the other markets to know if that compression is valid or not. Anyways, so yeah, there's a good chance in this specific scenario it could go all the way through. And what you're going to see in today's trade example is you're going to see a top tick 4 and a top tick 5 on very high time frame ranges, because we ranged for about 3 days on ES and NQ, and neither of them had bottom ticks. Okay, so much like this TTX3 example, there's a good chance it could go all the way to the other side. Now, this range over here, and we're going to have to do a lot of scenarios so you can understand how it is that I process these things, okay? And this specific example, well, we got the top tick right here, right? We got the top tick. So this is going to be a TTX 1. Then they finally come down here. Well, then this would be a BTX 1. So in this specific example right here, this specific range on the left, what did it do last? So if the last thing it did was a bottom tick, then it should go to the other side. If the last thing it did was a top tick, then it should go to the other side. So since this bottom tick here is fresher than the top tick here, then I'm going to be more long biased. Now, that depends on other contexts, higher time frames, the correlations, everything else. However, in a general loose fashion, whatever it did last, I will be leaning on that direction. So if the last thing was a bottom tick, I'm long biased. If the last thing was a top tick, I'm short biased, okay? Now, here's the deal. Let's go ahead and erase all of this. Redraw. So when is it not a top tick? Okay. So same concept, right? Not a top tick. No bottom ticks. Top tick. Now, if it does this, that's not a top. That's not 2 top ticks. That's still 1. Why? In order for it to count as a top tick or bottom tick, I need it to pull back further. I need it to really pull back further before I would count it as 2. If it's just like staying up there and doing this bullshit, those aren't extra top ticks. So I really wanted to pull a decent amount of the range back before I would count it. Okay? So like that's too shallow up here. That's just way too fucking shallow in this region, okay? So again, you know, it does this and then it could go down. Well, this is still a TTX 1. However, if they can pull it a bit deeper in, and then do this, then it would be TTX 2. All right. So does it need to be the midpoint? Not necessarily. It depends how tall the range is. I just need them to pull it in decent. It can't be just like hovering up there and doing this shit, because if it's If it's doing that, it could just start to like rise and drift up like this. And then at that point, that's a channel and it's not even really a range anymore. So it's not valid in that circumstance. Okay. So now we know when to count it, when not to count it. Okay. Now here's the deal. Okay. So if there's a sudden influx where all the bids pull, and it just goes like this, really, it goes like this so quick, but it's almost instantaneously going up. And the bars are so tight that you can't really see any spacing in between. Then that, because of how deep it went, that is TTX2. Okay. So that would be 2 top ticks because it pulled in really quick. Now, if it's sitting here and it's not pulling in deep enough, and it's just kind of floating up here for fucking ages and ages and ages and ages, and it's not pulling in deep enough, and then it does this, then it would be a TTX2. But again, if it's doing this and it's not really spending much time up here and it does that, TTX1. Okay, top tick 1. Okay, so I need, and this goes for pretty much all my EV tags, my mid-roll tags, my almost target tags. There'll eventually be a video, if it's not already up, on my tags. I need, in order to count something like this, I need distance, time, or both. Okay, so, and what's happening here is there's clearly a new micro range here. This is now officially a micro range. That is a micro range. It's clearly a range. And to me, in this specific example, this could be a range stack, which is going to be advanced price action, and that's going to be a eventual future module. If this was a range stack, just to prep your mind, if this was to roll, there could be a good chance it blows through. Not necessarily because of the top tick, but because of the way ranges stack, which you're going to see an example of that today, actually. So I know it's a lot, but this is how I trade, guys. So now we kind of see how these things are working. Now, when is it not a top tick? When is it not a bottom tick? Okay. Can it go too far? Yes, it can. So if the range is really, really small, there's your top tick. Okay. If the range is really, really, really small and it comes out like that far, it's not quite a top tick. You want, when you're looking at the range, you want to see sort of just this shallow sort of line here. If it's really pushing out a lot, it doesn't look like a top tick anymore. Like if it really goes out and then comes back in, that's seems to be more than a top tick. Okay, because sometimes it can do that and then it goes up and then it just continues to go up. Well, then there's no top ticks here at this point. This, however, if it does come out and it pushes beyond a top tick, like it could either do one of these two scenarios where it just continues, or it does this. This is actually called a V flush, which is a top tick on steroids. Now, this would not be a V flush, okay? It needs to have that more V look. And when it's more than a top tick, when it's pushing further than what I would, and it's something you just see with your eyes, if it's pushing more than a top tick, it's got to have that V look. And if it has that V look and it's coming in, and it's really coming in, it's probably going to blow out the other end. Like there's a higher probability on this right here that it will go to the other side. Now, higher prob. prob versus just a single top tick like this. Now, if you have something where it top tick 1, top tick 2, bottom tick, top tick 3, top tick 4. Well, this fucker's a BTX 4, or sorry, TTX 4. This has a better probability of going to the other side versus a TTX 1. A V flush, however, I just need one of those, and there's a good chance it could go all the way through and like actually blow out the other end. Now, the thing is with the V flush, right? So we got this. So let me actually duplicate this. So with this, the V flush, now this will be a profile. Okay, this will be a volume profile. Most likely it'll have that look. So it'll have, this is the profile, this is the curve, right? Here's your profile, right? This one kind of looks like shit, but there you go. We know the value area, high and low, are about 70%. Now, if it V flushes out, there is a chance that it hits that value area high and then pivots off. So we have to be wary of that. We don't want to just fade the V flush back in. Versus sometimes it will come in and then juice it all the way through. Now, to really know, that's a whole nother ball game. That's where things get really nuancy. But anyways, yeah, that's the V flush. When it goes out really far, but it's immediately coming back in, that's like a top tick on steroids. Now it could fail. However, we're using these we're using this context to formulate a narration. Obviously, I'm leaning on other shit like low nodes, gaps, high EV PVAs, all this other fucking, which you're gonna see. Okay. So let's talk about, you could have this and then, right. And then it's Ving out like this, right? Now, what could happen is, okay, well, there's no top tick here, right? Hold on. Let's actually redraw it. So right about here, that would be a top tick, and now it's going a little bit too far. Also, I want to say, like on higher time frame ranges that are really wide, that are many, many points wide, the top tick can be more than a tick. So a top tick is more than a tick. It can be 2 ticks. It can be 3 ticks. Now, if it's a super micro small range, because everything's fractal, if it's a small range that's like 2 points, then it needs to be about 2-3 ticks max. If it's a fucking 10-20 point range, then it can be up to a point, 2 points maybe to be a top tick, especially if the fucking thing is been going on for days and days, okay? So keep that in mind. It's not exactly 1 tick above. So in this example, this could be a top tick right here. Okay. However, this isn't. And now it's not a V flush because it's doing this. All right. But then all of a sudden we bang through. Well, fuck. Then it does this. Well, now this whole thing is range expanding. These 2 ranges here, this range here and that range up there, they're starting to become one range in this specific area. Let me actually copy this and just kind of move it to the left. So now we're range expanding, and then it can become something of this nature, right? So now it's range expanded because these micro ranges will tend to turn into bigger ranges. It happens. Just like low nodes on profiles eventually get filled in and then it combines 2 profiles. So we originally were measuring a top tick in this location, right? Well, now that the range has expanded, I'm like, okay, well, then that's no longer valid anymore. This would be the new top tick, here to here. So then this TTX 1, we're going to get rid of it because now it's kind of not even really at the top of the range anymore because the range expanded out. Now that we have this shit going on, now we have a TTX 1. So now we need to really look at this because it's range expanding. That would be a TTX 2 now, okay? So just understanding how these ranges work and how they expand is going to adjust how you do this. I told you this is going to be excruciatingly nuanced, okay? Pretty sure I cover everything I need to on how to use the top tick, bottom tick. So now what we're going to do is go ahead and look at the actual trade from today, and then I will break it down, and then we're going to get even more complex and complicated and show you how I finesse the entry using other things I've shared in the YouTube course. Okay, guys, so let's get some context. So this is a 10-minute chart of the ES, and you can clearly see here a range and another range. Okay? This range down here, here's the days. This range here is about 2 days. Again, 10-minute chart. This one as well is about 2 days, maybe 3 days in this upper range. 10-minute chart, okay? And notice how the price today flushed. Just so you guys know, for future videos, this would be range stacking, and this is a range stack, and it's a flush. Again, I've been hitting towards this so you guys can know and then embed it into your unconscious minds. So next, what we want to do is zoom in, and we want to look at just this upper range. So this right here could range expand to where these two ranges become one, but I'm not here to speculate. What I'm here to do is look at this specific area. So these are my top ticks. So here's where the range first starts. Top tick 1. Come down, and the range is about down here. So at currently, this is what it looks like. So let's do this. So the bottom of the range is roughly here, right? So right here would be where we're looking for the bottom tick. Here's the top of the range. Again, we got the top tick on this bar here. Then they pull down, but they don't bottom tick here. They do not bottom tick this. They come up, and this is kind of a V flush. It goes a little too high that I would hypothetically be like, okay, well, this is a TTX 2 with a V flush. Okay? I would still count that as a top tick. However, I'm going to put the V on my tags to say, hey, V flush. And what did we say? If it V flushes, it could go to the other side. Well, it goes to the other side. And what does it do? It comes back in and it V flushes again. So now we have, hypothetically speaking, this is further out. Because sometimes I won't count it. Sometimes I'll be like, well, fuck, that went really far. So this might just be a BTX 0, but it's a V. Because that kind of goes way further than this right here. So this is where it gets a little weird and discretionary, just so you guys know. Okay, now that we V flushed here, well, what is it probably going to do? It's probably going to go to the other side. Does not go to the other side. That's not a top tick. And then it drifts up. And then it comes up here. that is now it's not really a V flush up here anymore. So what I would do in this specific circumstance is just get rid of that. Now it's going to be a TTX3 because the range is expanding. It's, you know, this is a pretty good top tick right here. It's pretty much looks like a top tick compared to this section. Let's actually erase everything here. Get fresh eyes on it. So now it's a BTX3. This pulls down right here, and then it comes up, and it's a TTX4 at this point. Well, okay, let's take a look from this perspective. Remember, I said time is important. So from here to here, that's about 3 hours, okay? Whereas, like, if we go into the 30-minute, or 30-second, I'm sorry, what you're seeing from here to here is here to here. This would not be another top tick. Because this is only gone on for 30 minutes and it's not pulling down deep enough. Versus here to here is about 3 hours and it's pulling relatively deep enough that it's kind of going to the value area high of this region. So if I was to draw a profile here, see it's bouncing the value area high right there. So it's pulling in decently deep enough that at least it's hitting the value area high. So I would count this next test as a 4. Okay. Whereas I would not count this test as 5 from here to here. Okay. This is why I showed you what I showed you. Now here's the deal. This really doesn't have a bottom tick because this is way further than here. Right? This V flush up here is relatively close. It's a little, this right here is kind of on the cusp of being a V flush and being a top tick. It's like, it's a little too far to be a top tick from this point, but it's close enough. It could be a top tick. However, it's got that V look to it. So it's kind of like in the middle where this is evidently a V flush because it's way further than a bottom tick here. So that's a full-on V flush. So that whatever, if I was measuring this originally as a bottom tick, and let's say the market did bottom tick right here, BTX2, well now when this blew out, well I'm going to erase all that and it will be BTX0 because this is the reference line, okay? Remember, like this is the reference pivot. We don't count the first test high or low as bottom tick or top tick 1. It's the second time it does it, and it's evidently a range that it's getting counted for the first time. If you're confused, you'll see on NQ because we're going to go over that. So they push down, and then, in my opinion, this is a 2-day fucking range, okay? And to do that, tool, by the way, is Alt-2 on Sierra charts. Alt-2. Since this has 4 top ticks, and it really doesn't have a bottom tick, because now this is sort of the bottom of the range, because it very much V-flushed and came all the way through. And much like I've told you, if the last thing they did was top tick, well, there's a good chance it's going to go all the way through. Well, we happen to have 2 top ticks after the V-flush, after the first initial test low. So that's an even better chance it's going to go down versus 1 top tick up here. However, altogether, there's still 3 top ticks up here if it didn't put in this 4th. So it's still a good probability it will go down, but since it did it a second time, sealing the deal that there's 2 top ticks after the V flush, then that's a greater chance it'll go down. And when we factor in the stuff before the V flush or before the bottom test, that's 4. So that's a really good chance it'll go down. Because there's really no bottom ticks, and this is range expansion, so there's a good chance they're going to test down there, which really what they do here is they mid-pivot this range. You notice that? Remember I talked about mid-rolls? We look at that range. Look at that yellow line right there. Yeah, it overshoots it a little bit, but it's pretty much a mid pivot right there. And in my A+ trade video, I talk about mid rolls in this very example. So if you want to see what I'm talking about with the mid pivots, go watch that. There will eventually be a module on it. So there's Womack right there. What are you doing, boy? So anyways, yeah, that's all good in the hood. And look, they push it so far down. That's not a bottom tick. Yeah, it would. See, this would be a bottom tick from over here, because if I put on my crosshair, here's the bottom. Notice how it's breaching. Okay, but since it pushed out further and then it's clearly rearranging up here, well, this is the new benchmark. So if it had not gone down this far and it stayed up in here, this would actually be BTX 1. And since that would be the last pivot, and there's a good chance it should go up at that point. Even though we have 4 top ticks, and since, like, if you're heavily skewed on top ticks or bottom ticks, there's a good chance that wherever the heavy skew is, it's going to go opposite of that. So there's clearly more up here, so there's a heavier chance it's going to go down, even though the most recent thing might be a bottom tick. Nuances, guys. So they flush it. All right. So I know coming into the session that, hey, man, there's a good chance that they could be setting this up to go down. Then let's look at NQ. Same thing, range stacked, but not as clean as ES. Like, the stacks are really on top of each other, whereas when you look at the NAS crack, it's really drifted up a lot higher. So let's look at NASI, right? Let's really look at NASI. So let me make certain things disappear. Let's get rid of the profiles. All right. So right here, they're kind of starting to make a range. Here's your benchmark on the low. Then they do this. And at this point, I know this area right here, especially when it pulls in and drifts down, it's like, okay, well, at this specific point in time, I know this is a range. So this will be TTX 1. Here's our first pivot high, second. So that is the first time it's measuring. This is right here, where right here it would be BTX 0. Last thing that happened is a top tick. It should go low, but it doesn't. See, it doesn't always do what you think it should, but it might not. They roll short here. They don't hit it. Then they top tick. TTX 2 now. Okay. I did not mean to do that. Anyways, so we know at this point, top tick 1, top tick 2, TTX 2. So at this point, since it got really close to the bottom tick, the first, that's not, again, not the bottom tick, but the standard of measurement or whatever, since it did this and then it's top ticking again, there's a really good chance, in my opinion, they're going to push it. And right here, they roll short. That is not a bottom tick. If we were to actually like zoom in on this thing, which we're going to do, again, 10-minute chart. Look. It is right. The crosshair is right. The fuck. See, it's not breaching. The crosshair is right at the bottom of that bar, so it's not breaching. It's not a bottom tick. They really jam it back up to the midpoint, and they actually fucking mid-roll the range right here. And then they V-flush. So now they V-flushed. Okay, let's look at this thing and start counting it. So now we have a new, that's evidently a V-flush. That is definitely a V-flush, okay? So we know we have top ticks? Well, they V-flush. So now that's my first unit of measurement. Since it's a V-flush, what is it probably going to do? High probability is going to go to the other side. Well, right here, there's a little red bar right here. You can probably just make it out. That is a top tick. It is above here. Okay, so let's actually erase everything again and really zoom in. Okay, and let me actually draw to where the markers stay on. So right where this red bar is, it is breaching. It's a top tick. Top tick 3. But look, it immediately collapses in here. It does not breach here, but it breaches here. Right? So that's sort of a top tick. What is that, a 5 now? Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4. I could have sworn this had... Oh, you pleb. There's one right here. Ha. So it comes in off this red bar, immediately rips up. Remember I showed you that tightness? So that's another top tick. Doesn't top tick here, but since it's coming from way down here again, this is the next top tick. So therefore, this is top tick 5. Bottom tick 0. There's nothing down here. In fact, this 5th top tick kind of goes a little too far that it's a V-flush, in my opinion. It's kind of on that cuspis of V and a top tick. Like, it's in that in-between. This is like, it looks like a top tick, but it's a little too far to be a top tick, but it's not a very defined V-flush. Like, this is a very defined V-flush. Like, this really pukes a lot fucking further. Where this isn't quite from this high, not going nearly as far. So it's kind of more of a shallow, it's like an in-betweener. So now we have 5 of these things on the NQ. We got fucking 4 of them on the ES. So what's the last thing it's done? Well, it's top ticked 3 fucking times since that V-flush. So that makes the probability of it going lower better. This shit doesn't happen all the time, guys. This is as A+ as it gets, and you do not see this shit that often. So I've cherry-picked a great example. However, this principle is very fractal. It applies on smaller micro ranges, intraday ranges, and it does happen every day, all day long. Not all day long, but it happens every day on smaller ranges all the time. However, for the sake of really understanding these things on a higher time frame, this is a great example, and it happens to just be from today, and I'm like, fuck, finally. Because when I'm trying to make these modules, I need specific lessons, and the market doesn't always give me those specific lessons. Today, it just, like, been wanting to do a video on low nodes, okay? And I'm not getting a good lesson out of the market to really showcase it. So this just happened to give me like what I needed for this part of the module. That's why doing this course is pretty difficult. You can always subscribe to the coffee and just see this shit all the time being explained. However, let's continue. So now let's take a look at Russell, right? Russell it's been ranging lower and lower. And since Russell has been continuously ranging lower and lower day after day, whereas ES hasn't, and NQ hasn't either, NQ and ES have kind of drifted up. Higher time frame, this range being on top of this range, to me is long bias on NQ and ES. However, Russell for days has been continuously dumping and ranging lower. So I'm like, fuck, dude, Russell might drag the other markets, and Russell drags the other markets. And I love Russell not moving exactly with ES and NQ, because when Russell does something, it influences NQ and ES. If ES and NQ look like they're going to break a range, but Russell is clearly in a very defined range itself, and it's smack dab in the middle, ES and NQ are going to have a hard time breaking. If Russell is clearly breaking and ready to rip, it's going to influence the others. And also, contextually wise, this range right here, by the way, here's an example of a V flush. This range up here is over 630 days. They busted this range, and I'm like, this might be a V flush, and I'm talking about this potentially being a V flush in my prep sessions on the coffee. So I'm like, okay, this might be a V flush, right? However, we need to see what happens. Like, as it was ripping up, I'm like, fuck, this could be a V flush. However, Russell's now hitting the value area low of a 2-year range. Remember what I showed in those drawings? This fucking market, and by the way, here's some bottom ticks. Here's a bottom tick. By the way, this, if it could, we either go in this and we jam up, or we pivot down there and we pivot that value area low and keep going down. Well, ES and NQ are kind of drifting up for a few days, while Russell is clearly evidently pivoting that value area low and dumping. And it's at some point Russell's going to eventually drag the markets. Also, when we look at ES on the 60-minute, because context is important, okay, look at the ES on the daily, for instance. Okay, here's the ES daily chart. So, see how it's been channeling down? ES has ripped up and just went really fucking crazy, really fast. Remember this video? Advanced price action, slips and reclaims? This right here is a giant fucking reclaim on a daily chart that's probably going to have the market dump back through. So everybody that thinks the bull runs here is like, no, because that is a huge reclaim. If we look at a 60-minute chart, that is this move. This move from here to here on the 60-minute chart, and I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these lines. This move from here to here on the 60 is this move from here to here on the daily. Okay? You're talking about a very parabolic move, for the most part, that went up for about 7 fucking days. And here's the thing. When you have a 7-day trend up or down, that's a lot of energy. So the market needs to go sideways in order to stop that. So that's exactly what happens, is in order to stop this move from continuing, the market ends up going sideways for a total of 6 days. That's what it's going to take to stop a 7-day up move or a down move. Even here, you see a down move for about 12 days. However, we're going to kind of overlap it. Hypothetically, it goes sideways for about 5 days here in this region. It's kind of churning out sideways. That's what it takes to stop that move. So why is this important? Because we need to understand this on the higher time frame to make sound decisions. So this is not just a top tick, bottom tick thing. Okay. So now we have a bunch of context and shit. We're pretty certain that it's going to go down, and we're pretty certain it's going to go down because of other things, which I'll be showing you in the video. Alrighty, guys, so we're going to go ahead and look at that really good entry, the last trade on the P&L. Again, the whole session was pretty impressive. You can see it on the coffee. It's the November 9th, 2023 episode. So if you want to check that out, this is what it looks like. It'll be right here. You can see it's episode 53. This is the prep from the prior night, and then this is the DRC episode from when I lost on that specific day. And you just kind of scroll down, and these episodes really, they go on. You got to go to see all, and they just go on and on and on. So there's so many episodes. White thumbnails are preps, blue are narrations, and greens are daily report cards. There are oranges in there, which you're going to have to scroll to find the case studies. That's the thing about it, is you're going to have to really scroll to... So what we're going to want to do is we're going to just look at the last trade because this video is very long. So how am I timing this? Obviously, I attempted to time it, and I was having a really hard time. And what happens in this specific example is, let's zoom in. And I know it's going to be a little blurry and shit. But as you can see right here, this is ES in this region. See this pink line? This is the bottom tick. This is the V flush right here, and we roll a few, like 2 ticks, 3 ticks above it, and then I get blown out because the market went against me so quickly. So in my opinion, because it's a TTX 4 on ES and a TTX 5 on NQ, this thing should be going down, but and they should be hitting that bottom tick, which I was gonna scale at, and I did scale some initially, and then we got blown out. But it was very odd that happened. But the market dumped in so quick. You can see the bar is pretty vertical, that it did reclaim back, which again, there's a video on that, so that makes sense why that happened, and that's why I wasn't surprised. Now, if we go down to Russell here, Russell has a range. You can see they're breaking that range. They're clearly, evidently breaking this range. So that to me is telling me that this is breaking out. Also, Russell, see how the whole background of Russell is yellow? That is a gap. Again, there's a video on gaps. So Russell is hitting a gap, which is a whole nother setup. And then also, you can see that Russell is hitting, because this is a recording, it's going into this white box right here, which is going to be an EV1 plus. It's probably an EV3 at this point with a mid-roll. So there's a white box here to here. And then there's an EV6 low node here. So there's a good chance that it could go all the way across right here. And then it's also in a gap. So a lot of these setups, the way they're overlaid, and if they have really high expected value, they're going to combo flush into each other. So this is a reason to hold the top tick play. So let's go ahead and look at NQ as well. And then I will zoom out. You can see the bottom tick would be this peak line right here. Says BTX 0. That's that V flush I showed you on the 10-minute chart. In my opinion, it should go there. Now, here's the problem. Here's the real big problem right here. Now, as you can see, there's 2 profiles. Why do I have 2 profiles here? Hold on. So why is it that I have 2 profiles here? Okay, so let me show you something. This profile right here, that profile is that range we saw that's going for about 2-3 days on the 10-minute chart. So that specific profile is measuring the entirety of the 2-3 days. Whereas this profile right here is more so measuring just the open, just the intraday. And the problem, the thing is, I want to know what the RTH profile is. I want to know, because like, if I'm just trying to lean on a profile that's been going on for many fucking days, like the one on the left, RTH price action trumps all other price action. There will be a module, if it's not already out by now, on how RTH price action trumps everything. RTH price action is the most important price action. So therefore, in order to hit any setup, you have to really understand how to read that, because that will make or break, or make a specific setup or area either easy to get into or very complex. So this profile on the left right up here, that one is like 3 days or some shit like that. And it's comprised of, you know, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of contracts. Whereas, like, I want to see if I'm measuring more recent price action. So let me show you here, and this will get more cleared up. So if I'm measuring more recent price action, this is profiles measuring from here over. I'll be able to see the definition in the profile a little bit easier for the RTH session, because ultimately volume flows into the RTH session and it's really fresh volume. So, like, you know, it comes out at the end of the day, comes back in. So I really need to be kind of leaning on RTH structure while also being very aware of where we at on 2 days. This is a 3-year POC, so we all know this is a 3-year profile on the right, which I talk about in the gap video. So that's the point of control for 3 fucking years. So there's a really good chance we could potentially get stuck here. And it's also the midpoint of the 2-day, 3-day, I'm just going to say 3-day profile. So what I want to do is I want to have meat advantage. I want to have meat advantage. I want to have range advantage. You know, I talk about meat advantage in this video. So I want to have the profile working for me, because that there's a gravitational pull, and I do believe I talk about that in the profile video as well. So what I want is I want the profile to be working in my favor. I don't want to be trying to get short below this thing. See how there's a low node pocket here on a and we're wicking up into it? I want to be looking for a short right there. And I actually marked that on the DOM. So you're going to, when I pan this over, you can see an arrow right here at 92.50. That is that low node. What do the arrows mean? Well, they mean all sorts of shit. So, whoops, didn't mean to do that. So, yeah, that's what that arrow is. So that specific arrow is measuring, you know, this low node up here on the NQ. However, I need to see fresh price action, especially like with this. And the less you measure with your profile on Sierra charts, the more defined it is, the lumpier it is, and I need it to be lumpier. And you'll see as this pans on. So what we know is, you know, we have this low node here. We have kind of a range, but it's channeling up, so it's a little weird. However, I want to be short as close to this area as possible. Problem being is I need the other markets to agree. Like, I want the other markets to be above the mean, above the bulk of the profiles. So when we come down, down here, here's Russell, and, you know, this is fresher price action. You can see that I really want to be like short on Russell here. The problem is, like, NQ's at a good spot. Like, NQ is up in that pocket where I want it. The problem is Russell's not. Russell is like right on the POC, so that's going to cause all this problem, and I don't want to get short because NQ's in a good spot, but Russell's not. I want Russell to be up there too, and then when we come over to look at ES, where's ES at, man? Well, we can see that ES is... So, you know, this profile on the left, that's, you know, 2 days, right? Well, the value area low is down here, and we're like ranging under it, which is good. That's a sign of a breakout. But again, the problem here, this is where we're getting a bit of dissonance, is NQ is not at its value area low on this profile. It's at the value area high. which can be good because that can drag the market back in. But again, Russell is smack dab in the middle, which is not good. So let's go back over. But the thing is ES gonna come back up? Well, there's a range here, and this profile here is the RTH session. Well, since that's the RTH session profile, there's a low node up here. I want to be kind of like short either in this pocket or ideally up here. And if that's happening, then it would be hypothetically a top tick because there's a pivot here and a pivot here. So if it could get just a little bit higher, the range is matching with the profiles, and then it would be a top tick of a range, and then I could leverage that, and then it's really a lot of multiple factors of support to get short. Okay, so I know that's a lot. Again, that's just how it all is. So let's go ahead and just kind of look at things. So these profiles on the DOM, they're RTH profiles. So an easier way to really monitor this at this point is to just kind of pay attention to the profile. You can see the lump of the profile is here. Well, 90.25 is a high node. I really don't want to be like short under that because that could keep pulling me in. Whereas NQ's kind of in that sweet spot where NQ's in the most ideal spot. ES is not, and then the profile for Russell is like smack dab in the middle. So that's not good. This ain't good. This is good to go. So what do? We need to wait. And that's what you're about to see is like the waiting. This is the most important thing. Like, I just need things to be right. If it's not right, fuck it. We miss it. That's okay. So let's go ahead and play it. And we're going to do it in 2x speed here. And I'm going to be fast forwarding and stuff so you can just kind of see. So Russell's still in the middle here. I go just a little bit higher. I think it'll be perfect. So it's like, okay, I will, since there is a low node pocket on Russell and what I'm narrating, and if you want to see the narration episode, it's on the coffee. And I can hear it since it's the recording. There's a low node pocket in there. It's like, okay, I will be willing to lean on it. Ideally, I want it to be up here, but in here, I would be willing to lean on this low node. You can probably barely see it, but there's a low node here. And see how it's chopping right here? Well, it's accepting here. So if it comes up in that pocket, since the bulk of the range is down here, this micro range, it's more likely to go down. Especially since this range is under this range. That's a range stack low, so that's a short bias. However, this could be a bigger, broader range, so we have to really play it safe. And NQ is just in a really good spot. ES is just not quite right yet. Now, I want to point out some other shit here. So we have about an EV9 low node right here. That's pretty high. There's a good chance that if we start coming in this low node, we're going to like actually go all the way through it and push it. And you can't see it here, but there's a very high EV low node here because these tags are overlaid. I believe it's like 18. So if we explore that bottom tick, there's a chance it could overshoot the bottom tick. So there's reasons to hold it beyond the bottom tick, especially since we're coming off 4 and 5 top ticks on NQES on 10-minute charts that lasted for 3 days of ranging, 2-3 days of ranging. EV3 here, this is a major low node. I have it titled major, so that's a very important low node. So if the red low node, which there will eventually be a module on these low nodes, if not, it's already up, depending how old this is. EV6 gap, this is no longer valid because it's really cycled through it. I just haven't updated that tag. So we're really trying to play, especially with the way the market bled out that hard on a 2-3 day range. That's really showing signs of weakness. Now it could slip and reclaim back up. So I say we can attempt this here. I don't know if I'm getting into it or not. I say this is a bit aggressive. I don't know if I actually show it. So we're getting in kind of near the bottom of the range, which isn't ideal, which would be the low node here. Like I get in at 89 actually. So we actually get in at 89. So we are right about here. So, and I'm manually changing these screenshots. Like I have to manually do this when I record these, so we can't see the DOM or the entry, unfortunately, because I forgot to put it over to the other screen. Because I'm editing on the fly by changing screens when I do these recordings. So I'm getting in up here, which is not ideal intraday. There is a low node in here, which we'll be able to see better. It's very ideal on NQ, not kind of a top tick, not a top tick. I'm not sure, but either way, we're above the bulk of the mean on NQ. So that should pull down, and then we're at near the top of the range here, so that should pull down as well. I'm not sure where Russell is at the time of the entry. So let's... So there's Russell. I might have been getting in when Russell was just pushing right up in that low node section, right about here. So I had a slight mean advantage. Let's take a look. Oh, we're in at 86. Okay, my bad. So you can see there's a low node here intraday. So I'm leaning on this low node intraday. It's just easier to see on Jigsaw. So really, I do apologize because now we kind of need to look at it from the perspective of fucking 86. Okay, so low node there's a little low node pocket here on the ES 2-day, 3-day range. There's a bit of a pocket here. Kind of getting in just, so we just get in. So we're getting in just above the point of control. You kind of have that top tick V-flush effect up here. Is it going to work? Is it not? It's micro. And then again, Russell was kind of in the ideal spot. Now, I know there's something else going on that I'm feeling as well to get into this that I'm just not quite seeing in this perspective. But either way, we're in it. You can see the low node right here. It's only 64.58 is one of the lowest nodes up here intraday. So I want to lean on that and then have a slight range advantage. So let's keep looking at this fucking thing. So we're in it at this point. All right. So as we're sitting in this, I'm going to go ahead and just sort of kind of more than a bottom tick here on Russell. So why are we going to hold this? So now we're starting to count EVs here. So let's go ahead and look at all this shit. Fast forward a little bit. So now we're in at the 86. We do scale because we get a little fucked up somewhere around this area. Now, at this point, I believe I'm pretty confident because Russell's at EV4, mid-roll 1, bottom tick 1. So there's a good chance that Russell is going to hit this bottom tick at this point because it's, you know, and potentially overshoot. So I'm banking that it hits that. And again, we got the purple line that way down here on NQ, which I think it needs to go to, and then the purple line that we just rotated above on ES that I think we need to go to. So this is where I'm leveraging multiple setups to really hold the trade. So this is where it's like kind of not what you know, we're using the higher time frame top ticks to make a decision, but we're using all this other shit to really get into this, and we have plenty of reasons to fucking hold. So the market starts to go sideways, and then it pukes finally. Now you can barely see up here, so we'll zoom in and go over. So we got in at the 86. Now, at the recording this, like, I was leading on some very micro shit, and I couldn't recall without like fully watching this process for 30 minutes and going, oh yeah, that's why I entered. So I leveraged some very micro low node pockets to get into that. It's going to be more evident in the fucking actual like full recording. But anyways, right here, we get in right up in here. Sometimes you got to be aggressive on these things. And I'm like, fuck, I got to be aggressive because NQ's pulling back on the bulk of the mean. See how it ranged below where I got in? This is a stack low, so that's a reason to hold. Russell at this point is dumping, and Womack is just a black splodge on the fucking screen. So yeah, we're starting to hit right in this, you know, like I said, I think we're gonna come all the way through right here. So we scale some because also we're hitting that pink line. So that is the bottom tick. I need a scale there. Okay, so let's go ahead and fast forward some. So this is a very high EV count. This is like a fucking 18 or it's an 18. Yeah, it's an 18 low node. So we're hitting that bottom tick area on ES, and now we have an EV18 low node, and it's been tested 18 times from the top side. So in my opinion, that's a very high expected value. That's a reason for this bottom tick to potentially continue to push because it's a high EV counted low node. Where we also, again, a higher time frame 10-minute. We have a TTX4 and a TTX5 NQES. So that's also reasons to hold. We have an EV8 on Russell, so that's a pretty good count. It's been tested 8 times from the top side. That's a good reason to continue to hold. EV11 gap, you can see. I end up shorting this gap up to where the target is here. But Russell is more than halfway through this gap, which again, the gap is its own setup. So all these setups overlay, and that's how this is a trading system. So there's good reasons for Russell to continue because it's jumping this gap. Again, there's a video on that. Now, we hit the pink line on ES, but we've yet to hit it on the NQ. So, in my opinion, since NQ is a TTX5, ES was a TTX4, NQ being a TTX5 has more reasons to hit that purple line. So, that's more of a reason to hold. Plus, the gap is jumping on Russell, plus an EV18 low node. So this is why correlations are so important. There's so many things telling me why I should hold this trade. And for those of you who are on the coffee, this is why I prep every fucking day practically, is because we need to have these levels and EV counts so that way when something like this happens, we have the confidence to actually hold the fucking trade. So let's continue to watch this thing. So there's a 10-minute chart. There it is breaking. So at this point, I'm like, okay, we got a mid-roll here, which you guys already saw. So I think they're going to flush this range here. As you can see, ES is further down than where NQ is. So in my opinion, they're going to do a range stack flush, which that's another reason to hold. Plus, there's a mid-roll. Again, another reason to hold. So let's continue to really look at this thing. Let me go. So this thing right here is very interesting right here. So this is a prior value area right here, this white box. Now here's a look at the tag. It says EV10 ++ 1 hour, mid-roll 1, bottom tick 2, almost target 2. So what does that tell me? Okay. That tells me all sorts of shit. And there's reasons why, like, this is so I don't have to scroll back. The profile video shows you how to make these white boxes, okay? So what this is telling me in this specific location, let's actually, it's telling me there was a range in here. Now it's telling me that this, whatever this range was, it bottom ticked twice and then it broke out. Okay. So it's telling me, and this is probably not the actual size of it, it's telling me it bottom ticked twice. Okay. So it bottom ticked twice. The range duration from here to here was an hour long. That's not very long. Okay. So this range took an hour to set up before it left. Okay. And it had bottom ticked 2 times. All right. So that is a prior range, a prior value area. And the value area of the, I mean, the range could have been a lot, the range was probably a lot taller where it was more like this or some shit. Pretend that's a bottom tick, even though it doesn't look like it. Because again, this white area is going to be 70% of the bell curve. So that's the value area, right? So that information is like, okay, it's an hour long, it's bottom tick twice. So since it's bottom tick twice, if we go through this white box, there's a good chance, since it's a BTX2, because this is a prior value area, and I want to mark that. I don't care about the top ticks. Why do I not care about the top ticks? Because we went up. Okay? We went up, and those top ticks all got blown out. Now, if the market went low and we traded down here and then we're coming back up to it, well, then it wouldn't be bottom ticks. I'd be measuring just the TTXs. Okay. So, did we put in a range and did we go to the upside of that range? Like this range over here, there's no bottom ticks, but I know there was a V flush on it. And that's a 3-day range. This is a 3-day range. Okay? So, keep that in mind. Okay, so we know that it's a 1 hour range. So, it has revisited this range. And it has bounced on this fucking range at least 10 fucking times. It's actually hitting it, well, 9 times. But this right here is the 10th test. This is the 10th test right here, okay? It's a plus because there's a lot of distance. There's a lot of distance between the test from when the range was made and when it came out. And don't worry, I'll make another video on this, but just to emphasize this. Like, it has a good distance and good time. If it has this little shitty test, and it's an EV1, but it's a little shitty test, but it still tests the top of it, but it really didn't go very high, then it would be just an EV1. Or if it's okay, it would be an EV1 plus. But if it has good time and good distance, it's a plus plus. Now, it's a plus plus because, I mean, it's hit it fucking 10 times now. So, if that's confusing, don't worry, there'll be another video on that. So this has been tested 10 fucking times. And out of those 10 times, it's mid-rolled at least once. So the range came in and it's hit at least the midpoint once. Okay, MRX1. So, like, we've already seen examples of mid-rolls. There's a good chance it could go through, right? Not only has it mid-rolled once, but it's also almost hit the other side of this white box. So the white box is here. I know it looks white right here, but this line here is measuring the gap that's below us. That's an EV8. This lower line is the extent of this area. So what's happened here is not only has it mid-rolled it once, and it's testing it for a 10th time, but it's gone beyond the midpoint, come to the edge, and gone almost to the other side 2 fucking times, but it never went all the way across. So what that's telling me is, like, that's such a big tag set. That's telling me, hey, this range is only an hour long, and it had a really hard time getting through this. It's tested it 10 times. It's mid-rolled it once. It has 2 bottom ticks, so it could overshoot, and it's almost hit the other side 2 fucking times. And it's only an hour long, and it's really struggled to get through it. That is a high probability area that it should go the fuck through. And since it has 2 bottom ticks, not 1, it should overshoot. All right. So anyways, this is a reason to hold. And we're also below this EV18 low node. So that's reason for the market to continue to shove down. And we're not even at the fucking major bottom tick on fucking NQ. So these are reasons to continue to hold the trade. So let's go further in the future. Now it's bouncing all over the fucking thing. All right, we finally hit that BTX, but it just double bottoms. I'm still gonna hold this motherfucker. So at this point, here's the EV10. So, in my opinion on the NQ, this is a major low node pocket. See how there's a curve right here on the 3-year? That potential low node could, since it's an EV10 and it's tested it from the 10 times from the top, really you're getting the whole thing at this point. But I want you to understand why I do what I do and how I hold these things. It has not tested this from the back side yet and cleanly pivoted it. Again, there's going to be a module on this, so if this is confusing, you need to go watch that module because there's nuances with this. However, I'm pretty sure that could hold. And the same thing goes for ES as well. ES has a pretty major low node right here. It's ranging, so it's accepting this curve. You can see there's evidently a curve on the 3-year. So in my opinion, that this low node could potentially hold, especially since it's an EV18 and it's not really been held from the bottom end. So let's go a little bit more in the future. So it's not quite hitting it, but it's clearly evidently ranging. Now here's the problem: is it's starting to range above the white box, which is now at an EV11++. This is when setups get tricky. The EV count will go up and it'll be artificially high if the current price action starts to range on top of it. So while this is a high probability setup, even though I'm already in a setup at this point, getting into this is why I said earlier in the video, RTH price action trumps all price action. So you need to know this is a range. And you need to know that you're at range disadvantage and you're at mean disadvantage because most of the profile nodes intraday are above you and the range is above you. So if you're trying to hit into this from this range low, you're at a huge disadvantage. That you need to understand what this is, and you need to understand that you need to be leveraging up here if you want to get in this trade down here. Now, if this was like ranging in it or some shit, then yeah, you could get in at the top of it. So this is why RTH trumps all, and there will be a module on this. And when it comes to these modules in this course, it's really hard to start somewhere that you have to go back and forth throughout the modules to really connect the dots, because the trading system is circular. It's never like start with this tool. Kind of, yes and no. But anyways, let's continue to look at the fucking thing. So, yeah, it's starting to wicked. Let's continue to go forward because I'm in this trade for fucking ages at this point. Okay, here it is. It fucking hits the target. Okay. Okay, so let's look at Russell. Now, I am scaling at certain points. I keep fucking this up. I got a pan, you freaking buffoon. Russell, it could mean revert up. It's still breaking that EV8 low node. Good. Not much to really say about Russell. Let's go up to the other two at this point in time. So we're breaching that BTX. It could be bottom ticking here. Now, I like how it's churning on that bottom tick. That's usually a sign a bottom tick is going to fail. Like if it's churning on a top tick or bottom tick and it's a top tick, it's a bottom tick, but then the price action's kind of embedding and staying there, then it might not be a top tick or a bottom tick. So we reached where we needed to reach on NQ. So let's fucking come here. So we hit this white box. Now it starts snapping back in, but in my opinion, it's a BTX2, so it should overshoot. Which this gives me a bunch of drama and shit. So let's continue to look at it, but I'm holding this as this thing is snapping back. So I just want you guys to see that. Okay. So it went all the way across this white box. Hypothetically, a prior value area, anytime you see a white box, the moment it gets traded all the way to the other side, it's gone. I delete it. It disappears forever. Whereas the yellow boxes, the gaps, as long as there's still a gap in the profile, those things have like unlimited life. Eventually those gaps get filled in, but those setups keep resetting. And the low nodes, same thing with the low nodes. As long as the low nodes, the red lines are relevant, because I only tag red lines, white boxes, and yellow boxes. Yellow boxes being gaps, white boxes being value areas of profiles, PVAs, and then red lines being low nodes. Now we do have the pink lines, which are current value areas or current profiles, current ranges. And if I'm trading a current range, well, since the profile's ebbing and flowing and moving, we can't lock it in and make it a white box. It's not a prior value area. It's developing. So you're gonna see those tags. Low nodes and again, yellow boxes stay, as long as they're still there, they keep going. But the moment the white box gets traded through, it dies. So this is dead, but I want to keep this on, and I refuse to delete it because I want you guys to see, because I'm like, hey, this is a great example for YouTube. I'm pretty sure this BTX2, I'm pretty sure they're going to overshoot. And at this point, it's like, they might be channeling down, which they don't. So let's go further in the future. So I'm not concerned because this EV18 right here could hold. Now, I know it's overshooting. That's fine, but it could hold. Now, let's take a look at things right here. This is how do you have the confidence to hold shit? So there's a profile here. We've clearly are breaking the 3-day, 2-day range here, which also happens to mesh with the 3-year. We have another relatively good looking curve on the 3-year here. And this low node here is an EV10. So there's a high probability, since this is an EV10, that this keeps going down. Now, if it's coming back, it's testing the underside for the first time. Since it's testing this underside for the first time, there's a good chance that's going to roll. But what I really like about this is there's multiple factors of support. So what does that mean? Well, you probably know what that means, but I'll show you anyways. This value area low, the blue shaded area on the 3-day, 2-day profile is pretty close to this low node. Things don't pivot exactly on lines. They pivot areas. So there's a good chance that this pivots this area, which would be the value area low, and it's testing this EV10, which it should continue to go because it's an EV10 for the first time on the bottom side. Okay? Same thing with this EV18, which happens to be a nice curve here. Well, oops, I drew it like shit, right? Good curve right here. It's testing under here for the first time. Yes, it's overshooting. However, we have a curve here. This has gravitational pull. This should pull. Our current range is here. This has gravitational pull. It should pull. This right here is all reclaim. It's also kind of slipped. So because of that, it should pull. There's a video on that. Same thing with here. This is kind of a reclaiming hard move up. It should pull. Okay? So there's really a lot of reasons to continue to hold this at this point. So let's go forward in the future. Boom, they rotated. So now I put EV1 with an up arrow. So it's being tested for the first time on the bottom side. Eventually I'll get rid of this EV18 and it'll just say EV1. But for the sake of remembering what this low node is, I want to remember, hey, this has been tested 18 times from the top side. So therefore, hypothetically speaking, that's a lot of EV. It should keep going down. And clearly the ranging and the profile is down here. So it should continue to go down. You have reclaim or slip in this section, so it should continue to go down. Let's go in the future. Here's a good view of Russell. What is Russell doing at this point? Well, it's ranging here. Clearly there's a profile, so this should keep chopping here, where this is ES. ES is coming to the midpoint. So since Russell's at the top of this range and this profile, that it going down should help pull ES down. There it is. It's kind of in the midpoint. Is it going to mid-pivot? Are they going to mid-pivot? They could mid-pivot. I do believe I start scaling here because it's like, this is like a legit bottom tick, because this is the original reference marker and we actually bottom tick, you know, the 3-day range or whatever. So I do need to take a little bit off. So I get out somewheres I forgot, like in here, whatever, whenever it comes back in. We're not going to see the scales. I just wanted to show you. So now we're starting to dump in quite a bit. Let's look at it. So good. Again, this was a BTX2. Even though this doesn't exist, I think they should overshoot it. And then there's an EV2 test on the bottom side of this. Should continue. Now we're retesting this pink line, this major bottom tick of a 2-3 day range. It's churning it, so this may not actually be a bottom tick. If they're going to churn this, like I said earlier, there's a good chance they could continue to push it. Russell should be going through this gap. We're starting to breach at this point. I'm going to continue to hold this fucking thing. And then I do believe that I start getting out in these regions. So let's continue to look at it, because I do believe I start to get flat in this area. Okay, so we start to get out right around this region. You're going to see, I think there's only like, there's really not much left, like 2 lots. So I'm really looking for Russell to get to here. And then these are, again, these are the final scales. Now I want to show you why I'm done with it. So at this point, this has overshot that white box by a lot. So I'm just trying to squeeze this fucking thing. So I have one more left at this point. I guess I took one off. We didn't see it. But the way this is like compressed and kind of channeling down, I'm like, they could really puke it up. Look at this profile. They could really puke it up. I mean, there's really not much reason to hold beyond that, in my opinion. So you're about to see why I pulled the last lot. Do you see that really hard shove up? They're coming back into the 62s, and at this point, it's like, all right, it's time to get out. You know, that we need to get out. So let's look at the charts here. You know, it's so compressed right here that it's like, man, they could just puke it up. So, and then they start ripping it back in. And when you have these really quick shoves up like that, the offers are weak. And that was just like, let's get the fuck out. They push it up. Yeah, they drift it back down, but not for much more. And it's on the close. And then that's that. So when we look at, you know, this shit, 109 ticks, an hour and a half. Pretty good trade. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing that full walkthrough. This video was an immense amount of work. If you want to just thank me with a super like or go to the coffee, you could donate as little as $3. I'd appreciate that because these modules, this one especially, took a lot of work to really explain this, and we spent a long time really dissecting this, something you don't see on YouTube. So go ahead, check out the other videos. I hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you in the next one.